Chinese spies inside the U.S. Navy. 2 American sailors arrested on charges of selling sensitive military information to China. Heavy rainstorms moving toward northeastern China, the nation's largest grain belt. Farmlands submerged underwater and harvest season disrupted. A unique feature offered by a Chinese surveillance camera maker. Keywords like black, white, and yellow used to tag and track people as they appear in footage. What's the Biden administration's China policy? And how does it compare to the Trump administration's? An expert breaks it down.
I think that we see a high degree of continuity with the Trump administration.
What do you think? Let us know below and subscribe if you haven't already. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. 2 U.S. Navy sailors secretly spying for China. The 2 were charged with exactly that in 2 federal indictments on Thursday. They are accused of providing sensitive information about the U.S. military to the communist regime in exchange for bribes. Here's more.
2 U.S. Navy sailors have been arrested on charges related to national security and tied to China. The FBI arrested 26-year-old petty officer Wen-Heng Zhao, also known as Thomas Zhao, from Monterey Park on Wednesday. He worked at Naval Base Ventura County. He is charged with conspiracy and receipt of a bribe by a foreign official.
The charges demonstrate the PRC's determination to obtain information that is critical to our national defense by any means, so it could be used to their advantage. The alleged conduct also represents a violation of the solemn obligation of members of our military to defend our country, to safeguard our secrets, and to protect their fellow service members.
The indictment alleges that Zhao received bribes from a Chinese intelligence officer in exchange for disclosing non-public sensitive U.S. military information.
In addition, we charge that Mr. Zhao took photographs of electrical diagrams and blueprints for a radar system located at a U.S. military base in Okinawa, Japan. We also allege that Mr. Zhao transmitted to the intelligence officer working for the People's Republic of China details about the Navy's operational security, including photographs and videos of the interior of naval bases located at Ventura and at San Clemente Island, which is the Navy's only live-fire facility used for testing military equipment and operations.
In exchange for the information Zhao provided, he was paid about $14,800. This reportedly began in August 2021 and continued through at least May 2023. If he is convicted, Zhao would face up to 20 years in federal prison. And in a separate case, 22-year-old U.S. Navy sailor Jin Chao Wei, or Patrick Wei, was also arrested Wednesday for espionage charges. He was stationed at Naval Base San Diego.
According to our indictment, Wei provided China with photographs of military hardware, including guns, vehicles, and planes. He delivered information about U.S. Marines involved in an upcoming international maritime warfare exercise, and he sold scores of technical and mechanical manuals related to the operation and power structures of amphibious assault ships. Some of the manuals contained information deemed quote-unquote critical technology by the U.S. Navy.
In both cases, the Chinese intelligence officer directed the Navy sailors to hide their conspiracy and destroy evidence of the schemes.
Racial profiling, that's the allegation swirling around Chinese surveillance camera maker Dahua. Human rights activists are raising concerns after Dahua admitted it has skin color analysis built into its systems. There are 4 definitions: black, white, yellow, and unidentified. And these cameras are sold across Europe. That's according to U.S. surveillance research group IPVM. Dahua defending its system to IPVM, saying it does not target any specific group or ethnicity, adding it's a basic feature of a smart security system. The research group noting no other companies offer the so-called basic feature, besides another Chinese surveillance company, Hikvision. IPVM adding this raises, quote, grave concerns for tracking what Dahua considers black, yellow, and white people. Dahua has come under fire before. Reports noting as early as 2020, Dahua faced accusations of targeting the Uyghurs ethnic minority with its products in the Xinjiang region. IPVM reports Hikvision and Dahua have contracts worth $1 billion with Xinjiang officials. The U.S. and other countries say China is committing genocide against the Uyghurs. Both Hikvision and Dahua have found themselves on the U.S. blacklist. That's after the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, determined in 2022 that these companies pose a threat to U.S. national security. Sales of some of their products are banned in the U.S. No such ban is in play in Europe, but there are some steps. The European Union revised a draft of the artificial intelligence law in June this year, planning to completely ban the use of facial recognition systems in public places. Severe floods hit China's biggest grain-producing province Friday. Known as China's Great Northern Granary, the province of Heilongjiang is suffering from the aftermath of Typhoon Doksuri.
The house is flooded. It's gone, see? The house is washed away. The house is still in the water.
The provincial capital is waterlogged, with farmlands, bridges, houses, and city blocks submerged underwater. The video shows two vehicles plunging into a sinkhole on a highway right next to a swollen river. Paddy fields are also flooded. Residents in low-lying areas were told to evacuate. Large areas of farmland were flooded in China's most famous rice-producing city, Wuzhen. Villagers told local media that the flood would destroy all of their grains in days. More severe weather conditions, including tornadoes, are expected. Authorities raised the flood alert twice in 2 days. Further south, in the corn-growing region of Jilin province, authorities have evacuated over 12,000 people as heavy rain fell over the past 3 days. The flood is causing great disruptions to China's grain harvest, raising concerns of a food crisis across the nation. Other than causing huge losses in agriculture, the flood also hit industrial areas in the region. This causing anxious investors to seek answers from companies. A new front in the battle against Beijing's infiltration has opened up. U.S. House members Virginia Fox and Mike Gallagher recently sent a letter to UC Berkeley expressing grave concerns over the university's ties to the Chinese Communist Party. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more about their concerns.
Representatives Virginia Fox and Mike Gallagher sent a letter to UC Berkeley. They are concerned over the university's ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Representative Fox says the CCP is doing everything it can to infiltrate academic institutions in the United States, and that there's cooperation going on between Berkeley and a university in China.
And we want some answers. Berkeley is not reporting the millions of dollars that it's getting from China for this institute, and we're demanding answers on what's going on. We're very concerned that there could be infiltration from the Chinese Communist Party, getting technology and secrets from us that they can then in turn use against the United States.
Fox says such research collaborations may look innocent, but what kind of information the CCP is gathering or how they might use it is unknown.
They have hired Berkeley faculty to work on these projects, as well as having Chinese work on the projects. And we just want to know. It's important that there be transparency.
Fox says Section 117 of the Higher Education Act compels universities to report to Congress any money that's coming in that's $250,000 or more. But the representative says the Biden administration is not forcing the universities to make such reports. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The U.S. is still waiting for a response from China after inviting China's reassigned Foreign Minister Wang Yi to visit Washington, D.C. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Thursday that they haven't heard back from the Chinese regime yet. According to Reuters, the CCP expressed its willingness to maintain communications, but didn't go into further details. The invitation comes after the CCP abruptly removed Wang's predecessor Qin Gan, who was only in the job for 7 months. This raising questions about transparency, as Qin hasn't been seen in public since last month. Wang, who served as China's foreign minister for 9 years, got reassigned to his old role. He met Blinken in Indonesia in July during Qing's absence. Blinken emphasized the importance of continuing vital conversations with China and extended the invitation. China is reportedly pouring resources into making legacy microchips, and it has the West worried. So what's going on in China's chip war with Washington? NTD's Evelyn Lee spoke to Grant Newsham, retired Marine Colonel and Senior Fellow at the Center for Security Policy, for more.
Good morning, Grant. The EU and US, as I just mentioned, are worried about China pouring the investments into that legacy chip market. What are they worried about? Can you run us through what it means for the economy and security?
Well, the specific thing that they're worried about is that China can make a ton of these rather average chips, the so-called legacy chips. They're not the highest end, but they're ones you need to make all sorts of things. And that's really the immediate concern when China says, okay, if you're going to restrict our supplies of the high-end semiconductors, our ability to obtain them, well, we're going to go after these chips that ultimately are just as important, and we're going to dominate the market, if not control it. So that's the specific concern here. But it's part of a much larger trade war, which is actually a manifestation of a real war that's ongoing between the Chinese and the free world.
Now, with that, when you say dominate the market, can you go in a bit more detail? What are the risks that really come with that, and maybe where does it put us in that trade war?
Well, it's one manifestation of the communist Chinese having us dependent on so many things. There's obviously pharmaceuticals, drugs that everybody uses, legal drugs. China supplies illegal ones as well, but I'm just talking about lawful pharmaceuticals. That vast majority of the materials for these, or the actual drugs themselves, come from China. That's a form of dependency. There's high-end magnets that America needs for F-35 fighter jets. Well, most of those come from China. So it's this concern over dependency on the Chinese regime and the Chinese using it as a weapon against us.
So how big of a deal, just recently, the gallium and germanium restrictions that just kicked in this month, how big of a deal are they?
When China does announce a boycott of these, or a cutoff in their supplies of these materials, what that does is it tends to open up other sources of supply. It'll suddenly become profitable for other companies, other countries to produce these things. Even the United States can produce them.
Thank you so much, Colonel Grant Newsham. I appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What are the core pillars of the Biden administration's China strategy? How does it compare to that of the Trump administration? NTD's Steve Lance speaks to Roy Camphausen, president of the National Bureau of Asian Research, for a closer look.
Roy Camphausen, thank you so much for joining us.
Steve, great to be here.
Roy, the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party held a hearing with expert testimony on the Biden administration strategy in dealing with China, more specifically when it comes to conducting business with the CCP. How would you assess the Biden administration's early China strategy thus far in its continuity, I guess you would say, with previous administrations?
Well, the administration says that it has three pillars to its China strategy. First, to invest. That is to strengthen aspects of the United States, our infrastructure, our various programs domestically. Second, to align, that is to work very closely with allies and partners. And then the third, to compete. And it's in this last point, I think, that we see a high degree of continuity with the Trump administration. So I think it's notable that Secretary Yellen, when she was in Beijing, and shortly after did a press conference, and she said, I think it's premature to talk about lifting many of the sanctions and controls that were put in place by the Trump administration. So I think that shows a high degree of continuity, even if some of the stylistic dimensions are perhaps a bit different from the past administration.
Roy, some are raising concerns about the White House's pushing back on certain provisions in the NDAA that come across as being, I guess, tougher on China in certain regards, such as with fentanyl, more transparency with the Pentagon and who they work with on government funding projects. Do you think these are valid concerns?
Well, the industry, American industry, is really putting a lot of pressure on the administration. It's clear. And I think the approach that they're taking is to proceed perhaps methodically so that they don't lose parts of the coalition along the way. That the discussion about outbound investment controls has been going on for over a year. We're still awaiting the instructions and plan from the Biden administration. And I think that's indicative of the pressure that they're feeling from industry. But we're going to get something. It might not be exactly the most ambitious plan, but we're going to get something, and it's going to be important and I think help to make a difference.
Roy Camphausen, thank you so much for joining us.
Steve, great to see you. Thank you.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for 2 years. Here's what to look out for in our second half. Democracy versus communism, illustrated through a poignant look back at the Tiananmen Square massacre on June 4th, 1989. As unarmed students demanded democracy and transparency, the Chinese Communist regime responded with tanks. What happened on that day, and what was it like? We sat down with Sun Xue, journalist, writer, and human rights activist, for her insights on democracy versus communism and the CCP's global ambitions. The full episode is available on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. See you soon.